Imagine walking through a pitch-black forest. Suddenly, a twig snaps. In a crisis like this, we assume we are the ones making our own choices. But as a dark shape emerges from the shadows and this person violently jolts backward, the reality of human anatomy tells a different story. We operate under an illusion of rationality. We think we see a threat, consciously evaluate it, and then decide exactly how to act. Our biology maintains a different chain of command. The conscious mind waits for information, while the body takes the wheel on autopilot. Look at this exact fraction of a second. Their body is already throwing itself backward, yet their conscious mind literally hasn't received the visual data to identify the shadow. When sudden terror strikes, your rational, thinking self is locked out of the initial survival response. To see how this happens, we have to go inside the head and follow the raw sensory data of that dark shadow the moment it enters the eye. Normally, visual data travels along a standard neural pathway straight to the neocortex, the logical, analytical part of your brain that processes what things actually are. But the signal hits a junction and splits. A faster stream branches off, taking a secondary route that avoids the thinking brain entirely. It terminates directly in an ancient mammalian emotional center near the base of the brain. Because this shortcut is physically shorter, the signal reaches the emotional center milliseconds before the rest of the data reaches the neocortex. We are hardwired to physically react to a threat before we have the conscious ability to identify what it is. That emotional center is called the amygdala. Its entire evolutionary purpose is to prioritize immediate survival and speed over accurate analysis. The millisecond the amygdala receives that emergency signal, it initiates a chemical hijack. It instantly floods the system with survival hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. This chemical flood overrides your nervous system. It takes over, forcing your muscles to contract and pull you backward without ever asking your permission. Meanwhile, your slow, rational brain is still processing the raw visual data. It hasn't even figured out that the dark shadow in the woods is a harmless tree. Psychologist Daniel Goleman mapped this dual processing phenomenon, detailing how our emotional brain is built to bypass our logic in the interest of speed. This biological hijack demonstrates that in a sudden crisis, primitive instincts hold absolute veto power over logical thought. Then, time catches up. The person lands heavily on their feet, heart pounding, only to realize they are staring at an ordinary tree trunk. For our ancient ancestors living in a world full of predators, this rapid biological override was a crucial advantage. Jumping blindly at a shadow kept you alive. Today, we carry this same hardware into a different world. Now, it causes us to trigger that exact survival response over non-lethal stressors, like a tense argument, a frustrating email, or a sudden social rejection. These constant false alarms leave us exhausted and stressed, forcing our bodies to react to the harmless shadows of daily life, as if our lives were on the line. But the hijack does end. Control returns when your slower, rational brain finally finishes processing the data and identifies the truth of the situation. The neocortex recognizes the error, identifies the harmless tree, and begins to dampen the amygdala's alarm. This capacity to regulate our primitive impulses with logical facts is the foundation of emotional intelligence. Once the thinking brain sees there is no danger, it signals the body to clear out the chemical flood, finally handing conscious control and rational thought back to you. But the gap between that initial shock and your conscious realization is a reminder of how fragile our control really is. The next time panic sets in, you have to ask yourself, who is really pulling the levers inside your head?